The late afternoon sun slants through dirty windows, casting long shadows across the scuffed linoleum floor of a small-town police station. The walls are lined with faded photographs of past sheriffs, yellowed commendation certificates, and a large oil painting of the town founder from 1892, stern-faced and judgmental, overlooking decades of human drama. Clint Eastwood, 75, sits behind a metal desk that's seen better decades. His weathered hands sort through cold case files, with the patience of someone who's learned that truth rarely reveals itself quickly. He wears a simple button-down shirt and jeans, no uniform, but the quiet authority in his posture suggests he belongs here. The station hums with late shift activity. A phone rings somewhere in the back. Papers rustle. The coffee maker gurgles its final drops. Sheriff Margaret Torres, 50s, approaches Clint's desk. She's a woman who earned her badge through competence and grit, commanding respect without raising her voice. Worry lines around her eyes suggest she's been carrying more than her share lately. Sheriff Torres. Any luck with the Rodriguez case? Clint. Some inconsistencies in the witness statements. Might be worth another look. Sheriff Torres. That fire was 20 years ago. Family stopped asking questions a long time back. Clint doesn't mean they stopped wanting answers. A commotion erupts near the front desk. Janice Walker, 65, stands toe-to-toe with Deputy Rick Hendricks, 30s. She's small but fierce, clutching a worn manila envelope like it contains the secrets of the universe. Janice, I'm telling you something's not right. My father didn't just disappear. Deputy Hendricks, ma'am, we've been through this. Your father's case was investigated thoroughly in 1987. He was ruled a missing person, presumed dead. Janice presumed isn't the same as proven. And I found something that changes everything. Deputy Hendricks, Mrs. Walker, I understand your frustration, but reopening a 35-year-old case requires new evidence. Substantial evidence. Janice, what if I told you I found a letter? In my father's handwriting. Dated 3 days after he supposedly disappeared. Deputy Hendricks pauses, his dismissive tone softening slightly. Deputy Hendricks, what kind of letter? Janice, the kind that names names. The kind that explains why he had to run. Clint looks up from his files, drawn by the conviction in the woman's voice. He's heard enough false leads to recognize the difference between desperation and genuine discovery. Clint, Mrs. Walker? She turns, recognizing him immediately. Janice, Mr. Eastwood, I heard you were helping out here. Clint, what's this about a letter? Janice, my father, Thomas Walker. He was the night janitor here for 15 years. One day in 1987, he just vanished. No trace, no explanation. Clint, what did the investigation find? Janice, nothing useful. They said he probably had debts, maybe gambling problems, suggested he skipped town to avoid trouble. Clint, but you don't believe that? Janice, my father was the most honest man I ever knew. Worked 2 jobs to put me through nursing school. Never owed anybody a dime. Clint, tell me about the letter. Janice opens the manila envelope with trembling hands and pulls out a single sheet of yellowed paper. Janice, I found this yesterday, hidden in the attic insulation. Been there for 35 years. She hands the letter to Clint, who studies it carefully. The handwriting is shaky but legible, the ink faded but still readable. Clint, reading aloud. Janice, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I found something I shouldn't have seen. Something that powerful people want kept buried. He looks up at Janice, then continues reading silently. Clint, Contid. This is dated 3 days after his disappearance was reported. Janice, keep reading. Clint, reading. I've hidden the evidence where only you would think to look, behind the painting of Mayor Morrison in the station. The truth is worth more than my life. But your safety is worth more than the truth. Trust no one in uniform until you're certain they can be trusted. A heavy silence settles over the group. Deputy Hendricks shifts uncomfortably. Deputy Hendricks, Mrs. Walker, this could be a forgery. Anyone could have written this. Janice, it's his handwriting. I'd know it anywhere. Clint, the painting he mentions, is it still here? Sheriff Torres, the Morrison portrait? It's been hanging in the same spot for 40 years. Right over there. She points to the large oil painting of the town founder. Clint studies it with new interest. Clint. Mrs. Walker. What kind of work did your father do here besides janitorial duties? Janice. He cleaned the offices, emptied trash, maintained the building. He had keys to everywhere. Said he saw things, heard conversations that weren't meant for his ears. Clint. What kind of things? Janice. He never said specifically. But in the weeks before he disappeared, he was different. Nervous. Kept talking about doing the right thing, even when it was dangerous. Clint. Did he mention any names? Anyone he was particularly concerned about? Janice. Just that some people had more power than they deserved, and that power made them think they were above the law. Sheriff Torres exchanges glances with Clint. Sheriff Torres. Clint, can I speak with you privately? They step aside, leaving Janice with Deputy Hendricks. Sheriff Torres. Contid. What do you think? Clint. I think we need to look behind that painting. Sheriff Torres. Based on a letter that could have been written by anyone? Clint. Based on a letter written by a man who knew something was going to happen to him and took precautions. Sheriff Torres. You really think Thomas Walker hid evidence behind a painting and it's still there after 35 years? Clint. Only one way to find out. They return to Janice, who's been watching their conversation anxiously. Clint. Contid. Mrs. Walker, we're going to examine the painting. But I need you to understand. If we find something, it might not be the answers you're hoping for. Janice. I've lived 35 years not knowing what happened to my father. Whatever's behind that painting can't be worse than the questions I've carried all this time. Clint. All right then. Clint approaches the Morrison portrait. It's a substantial piece, 3 feet by 4 feet, housed in an ornate wooden frame. The painting depicts Mayor Morrison, circa 1892, in full formal dress, his piercing eyes seeming to watch everyone who enters the station. Clint. Contid. Help me take this down. Deputy Hendricks and Sheriff Torres assist in carefully removing the painting from the wall. As they lift it away, they reveal a small, dark cavity that's been carved into the wall behind it. Janice whispered. There's something there. Clint reaches into the cavity and withdraws a plastic bag containing several items, photographs, documents, and what appears to be a small cassette tape. Sheriff Torres. Jesus Christ. Clint. Let's see what Thomas Walker thought was worth dying for. Int. Sheriff's office. Moments later, the group gathers around Sheriff Torres's desk as Clint carefully examines the contents of the plastic bag. The photographs are black and white, clearly taken with a hidden camera. The documents appear to be police reports and financial records. Clint. These photos. They're surveillance shots. Someone meeting in secret. Janice. Can you make out who it is? Clint holds one photograph up to the light. It shows 2 men in what appears to be an alley behind the police station. One is in a police uniform, the other in civilian clothes. Clint. The man in uniform. That's Sheriff Brennan. He ran this department in the 80s. Sheriff Torres, my predecessor. He died in 98. Clint. Who's the other man? Janice. I don't recognize him. Clint. Let's look at the documents. He spreads out several papers. They appear to be incident reports, but with handwritten notations in the margins. Clint. Contidi. These are official police reports, but someone's added notes, comments about evidence being misplaced, or witnesses being unreliable. Sheriff Torres. What cases are they? Clint. Reading. Drug arrests that resulted in dismissed charges. Burglary investigations that went nowhere. And this one? He holds up a report with Thomas Walker's name on it. Clint. Contid. An incident report about your father, Mrs. Walker, filed the day before he disappeared. Janice. What does it say? Clint. Reading. Subject Thomas Walker approached Deputy Martinez with allegations of evidence tampering in multiple cases. Walker claims to have photographic evidence of inappropriate contact between department personnel and known criminals. Recommended action. Monitor situation closely. Janice. Evidence tampering? My father discovered corruption in the police department. Sheriff Torres. It looks that way. Clint. There's more. Financial records showing payments to various police officers. Large amounts from sources that aren't identified. Deputy Hendricks. This is serious. If this is real, it suggests systematic corruption going back decades. Clint. What about the tape? Clint holds up the small cassette. It's labeled in Thomas Walker's handwriting, Insurance, October 15th, 1987. Sheriff Torres, we'll need an old tape player. I think there's one in the evidence room. INT, evidence room. Minutes later, the group crowds around an ancient cassette player as Clint inserts the tape. The quality is poor, but voices are audible. Voice 1, filtered, through tape. The Walker situation needs to be resolved. He's seen too much. Voice 2, filtered, through tape. What do you suggest? Voice 1, filtered, through tape. Make it look like he skipped town. People disappear all the time. Deaths, women, bad choices. Voice 2, filtered, through tape. And if he doesn't cooperate? Voice 1, filtered, through tape. Then we make the decision for him. The tape continues for several more minutes, detailing a plan to silence Thomas Walker and destroy any evidence he might have collected. Janice, emotion building. They killed him. They killed my father. Sheriff Torres. We don't know that for certain. Janice. What else could have happened? He recorded them planning to resolve the situation. He never came home that night. Clint. The voices on the tape. Do you recognize them? Sheriff Torres. One sounds like Brennan. The other? I'm not sure. Deputy Hendricks. Sheriff, what do we do with this? Sheriff Torres. We investigate. Properly, but quietly. If there are still people involved who were part of this, Clint, they won't hesitate to protect themselves, just like they did 35 years ago. Janice. So what happens now? Does my father's murder just get swept under the rug for another 35 years? Clint. No. But we need to be smart about this. Build a case that will hold up in court. Janice Court? Most of the people involved are probably dead by now. Clint. Maybe. But corruption doesn't happen in isolation. There were other people involved, people who might still be alive, still in positions of power. Sheriff Torres. Clint's right. We need to trace the connections. Find out who else was part of this network. Clint. Mrs. Walker, I need to ask you something difficult. Janice. What? Clint. Are you prepared for what we might find? Your father was brave, but he paid the ultimate price for his courage. The truth might be harder to live with than the uncertainty. Janice, after a long pause. I've spent my entire adult life wondering if my father was a coward who abandoned his family. If he was a man who ran away from his responsibilities, learning that he was actually a hero who died protecting others. That's not harder to live with. That's a gift. Clint. Then we keep digging. Montage. Investigation int. Millbrook Police Station. Various times. The investigation unfolds over several days. Clint and Sheriff Torres work through nights, cross-referencing old cases, tracking down former officers, and mapping out the network of corruption that Thomas Walker uncovered. Int. Library. Day. Clint and Janice research newspaper archives from 1987, looking for patterns in crime reporting and unsolved cases. They find several suspicious incidents that align with the altered police reports. INT. Nursing home. Day. They interview retired Deputy Martinez, 70s, the officer Thomas Walker initially approached. He's reluctant to talk but eventually confirms that corruption was widespread in the department during the 1980s. Retired Deputy Martinez. Your father was a good man, Mrs. Walker. He tried to do the right thing. I should have helped him instead of reporting it up the chain. INT. Sheriff's Office. Night. Clint sits alone studying financial records by lamplight. Patterns emerge. Money flowing from a construction company to various police officers, coinciding with favorable treatment in investigations. ENT. Millbrook Police Station. Morning. Sheriff Torres arrives to find Clint surrounded by documents and photographs arranged on multiple tables. Sheriff Torres. You've been here all night again. Clint. I found something. The construction company that was making payments to police officers. It was owned by the Morrison family. Sheriff Torres. As in Mayor Morrison, the man in the painting? Clint. His grandson actually, Robert Morrison Jr. He ran Morrison Construction through the 80s and 90s. Sheriff Torres. What's the connection? Clint. Morrison Construction was bidding on major city projects, roadwork, public buildings, infrastructure. Having friendly relationships with law enforcement would have been very valuable. Sheriff Torres. Valuable enough to kill for? Clint, when you're talking about millions of dollars in government contracts? Yes. Sheriff Torres, is Morrison still alive? Clint, he is. Lives in a mansion on the hill. Retired, but still influential in city politics. Sheriff Torres, what do you want to do? Clint, talk to him. See how he reacts when confronted with the evidence his family's business generated. Janice, entering the office. I want to be there when you talk to him. Clint, Mrs. Walker, that might not be wise. Janice, this man's money paid to have my father killed. I have a right to look him in the eye. Clint, it could be dangerous. Janice, I'm 65 years old. I've been a nurse for 40 years. I've seen death, violence, and human suffering in every form. I'm not afraid of one old man with a guilty conscience. Clint, all right, but we do this carefully. EXT, Morrison Mansion, day. The Morrison estate sits on a hill overlooking the town, a sprawling Victorian mansion surrounded by manicured gardens and high stone walls. It's a monument to wealth and power accumulated over generations. Clint's pickup truck looks out of place as it winds up the circular driveway. Janice sits in the passenger seat, clutching the manila envelope that started this journey. Janice, 35 years I've driven past this house, wondering if someone inside knew what happened to my father. Clint, now we find out. In T. Morrison Mansion, foyer. Robert Morrison Jr., 75, greets them at the door. He's impeccably dressed, maintaining the bearing of someone accustomed to deference and respect. But there's wariness in his eyes as he recognizes Clint. Morrison, Mr. Eastwood. This is unexpected. What brings you to my home? Clint, we're investigating the disappearance of Thomas Walker in 1987. This is his daughter, Janice. Morrison, I'm afraid I don't recall that name. Janice, he was the night janitor at the police station. The man your money helped murder. Morrison's composure slips slightly. Morrison, I think there's been some misunderstanding. Perhaps you should make an appointment through my attorney. Clint, we can do this here, privately, or we can do it downtown with reporters present. Your choice. Morrison, after a pause, come in. But I want you to know that any accusations you're planning to make are both false and defamatory. ENT, Morrison Mansion, study. The study is a shrine to the Morrison family legacy. Photographs of mayors and businessmen, awards and commendations, portraits of powerful men making important decisions. It's the kind of room designed to intimidate. Morrison pours himself a scotch but doesn't offer drinks to his guests. Morrison, what exactly do you think you know? Clint, we know that your construction company made regular payments to police officers throughout the 1980s. We know that Thomas Walker discovered this arrangement and was killed to keep him quiet. Morrison, those are serious accusations. Do you have proof? Janice pulls out photographs and documents from her manila envelope. Janice, my father documented everything. The meetings, the money, the cover-ups. Morrison examines the photographs, his face growing pale. Morrison, where did you get these? Janice, from where my father hid them before you had him murdered. 35 years they've been waiting for someone to find them. Morrison, now see here, I never had anyone murdered. The very suggestion is preposterous. Clint, then explain the payments. Explain why police investigations into your company's activities were consistently dropped or diverted. Morrison, long pause. Business was different in those days. More personal. Relationships mattered. Janice, relationships? You call bribing police officers a relationship? Morrison, I call it practical politics. We employed half the men in this town. Our success was their success. Clint, and when someone threatened to expose your practical politics? Morrison, I don't know what happened to the janitor, but I can tell you that no one in my family or my organization ever harmed him. Janice, then who did? Morrison, how should I know? Maybe he did have gambling debts. Maybe he did skip town. People disappear for all sorts of reasons. Clint, Mr. Morrison, we have recordings. Conversations between police officers planning Thomas Walker's disappearance. Morrison sets down his scotch glass with a trembling hand. Morrison, recordings? Clint, your voice isn't on them. but the voices that are belong to men who worked for you, men who took your money and did your bidding. Morrison, I want you to leave. Now. Janice, not until you tell me what happened to my father. Morrison, I told you, I don't know. Janice, standing up, you're a coward and a liar, and my father died because of your greed. Morrison, get out of my house. Clint, calmly. We're going. But this isn't over, Mr. Morrison. The truth has a way of surfacing, even after 35 years. Morrison, the truth? You want the truth. The truth is that your father was a troublemaker who stuck his nose where it didn't belong. The truth is that some secrets are better left buried. Janice, not this one. XT. Morrison Mansion. Moments later, as they walk back to the truck, Janice wipes tears from her eyes. Janice, he knows exactly what happened. Clint, yes, he does. Janice, what do we do now? Clint, we keep building the case. Morrison's reaction tells us we're on the right track. Janice, will it be enough to prove what happened to my father? Clint, it's a start, but we need more. As they drive away, neither notices the curtain moving in an upstairs window of the mansion. Int. Millbrook Police Station. Later. Clint and Janice return to find Sheriff Torres waiting with a grim expression. Sheriff Torres, we have a problem. Someone broke into the evidence room last night. Clint, what was taken? Sheriff Torres, nothing, as far as we can tell. But someone was definitely looking for something. Janice, they're trying to find what else my father might have hidden. Clint, or destroy what we've already found. Sheriff Torres, I've moved all the Walker evidence to a secure location, but this means someone knows we're getting close. Clint, how many people knew about our investigation? Sheriff Torres, just us plus Deputy Hendricks and a few others I trust. Clint, someone's talking, or someone's listening. Janice, what if there are still corrupt officers in the department? Sheriff Torres, that's possible. Corruption like this doesn't just disappear overnight. Clint, we need to be more careful, and we need to move faster. Sheriff Torres, what do you have in mind? Clint, public pressure. Make it impossible for anyone to cover this up. Janice, how? Clint, we hold a press conference, lay out what we've found, force the authorities to take action. Sheriff Torres, that's risky, if we don't have enough evidence to support our claims. Clint, we have photographs, documents, recordings, and witness testimony. It's more than most cold cases ever get. Janice, I want to do it. My father deserves to have his story told. Sheriff Torres, all right, but we do this right. Full transparency, complete documentation. INT, Millbrook Police Station, press conference room, day. A modest crowd has gathered, local reporters, family members of other victims, and curious townspeople. Clint, Sheriff Torres, and Janice sit at a table facing the group. Sheriff Torres, thank you all for coming. We're here to discuss new evidence in the 1987 disappearance of Thomas Walker. Janice leans forward to the microphone. Janice, my name is Janice Walker. 35 years ago, my father disappeared from this town. For 35 years, I've wondered what happened to him. This week, I found out. She holds up the photographs and documents. Janice, Contid. My father discovered corruption in the police department. He documented it, recorded it, and tried to report it. For his courage, he was murdered. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Clint, the evidence shows a pattern of police corruption spanning several years in the 1980s. Officers were taking payments from Morrison Construction in exchange for favorable treatment in investigations. Reporter 1, what kind of evidence are we talking about? Sheriff Torres, photographs of secret meetings, financial records showing payments to officers, and audio recordings of conversations planning Mr. Walker's disappearance. Reporter 2, are any of the people involved still alive? Clint, some are, and they'll be held accountable for their actions. Janice, I'm not interested in revenge. I'm interested in justice, and in making sure that what happened to my father doesn't happen to anyone else. Reporter 1, What response have you gotten from the Morrison family? Clint: No comment so far, but we expect that to change. After the press conference, as the crowd disperses, Clint notices a familiar figure in the back, Deputy Hendricks, looking uncomfortable. Clint: Con TD. Rick, what's wrong? Deputy Hendricks: Can I speak with you privately? They step outside the station. Deputy Hendricks: Conted. There's something I need to tell you about the break-in last night. Clint: What about it? Deputy Hendricks: I think I know who did it. Clint: Who? Deputy Hendricks: My uncle, retired Deputy Jim Hendricks. He worked here in the 80s. Clint: Was he involved in the corruption? Deputy Hendricks: I don't know, but he's been asking a lot of questions about the Walker case since you started investigating, and last night he asked me for the security codes to the building. Clint: Why are you telling me this? Deputy Hendricks: Because it's the right thing to do. Because Mr. Walker deserves justice, even if it means my own family gets hurt. Clint: That takes courage, Rick. Deputy Hendricks: I've been thinking about what Mrs. Walker said, about how her father tried to do the right thing even though it was dangerous. Maybe it runs in families. Clint: What do you want to do? Deputy Hendricks: Help you finish this, whatever it takes. In T. Millbrook Police Station, evening. The station is quiet, most officers having gone home for the day. Clint sits at his desk, reviewing the case files one more time, when his phone rings. Clint Eastwood. Voice: VO. Distorted. Stop digging or you'll end up like Walker. Clint: Who is this? Voice: VO. Someone who knows how to make problems disappear. Permanently. The line goes dead. Clint stares at the phone, then immediately calls Sheriff Torres. Clint: Contied. Margaret, we just escalated to threats. Sheriff Torres: VO. What happened? Clint: Anonymous call. Told me to stop investigating or end up like Thomas Walker. Sheriff Torres: VO. We need to be careful. Maybe put some protection on Mrs. Walker. Clint agreed. This is getting dangerous. EXT, Janice's house. Night. Clint's truck is parked across the street from a modest suburban home. Through the windows, he can see Janice moving around inside, unaware of the potential danger. His phone buzzes with a text message. Check your email. Clint opens his email on his phone and finds a message with no sender information, just a subject line: The whole truth. The email contains a single attachment, a video file. INT, Clint's truck, continuous. Clint plays the video on his phone. The quality is poor, but it's clearly security camera footage from 1987. The timestamp shows October 18th, 1987, the night Thomas Walker disappeared. The video shows the back of the police station. Thomas Walker exits the building around 11 p.m. carrying a bag. He walks toward his car, but before he reaches it, two men in dark clothing approach him. There's a brief struggle, then Walker is forced into a different vehicle. The license plate is partially visible. Clint, to himself: Son of a bitch. He immediately calls Sheriff Torres. Clint: Contied. Margaret: I just received security footage from the night Walker disappeared. Someone's been sitting on this for 35 years. Sheriff Torres: VO. Who sent it? Clint: Anonymous. But it shows Walker being abducted from the station parking lot. Sheriff Torres: VO. Can you identify the abductors? Clint: Not clearly, but I can make out part of a license plate. Sheriff Torres: VO. Bring it in. We'll enhance it and run it through the database. ENT. Millbrook Police Station. Late night, Clint and Sheriff Torres work with a computer technician to enhance the video footage. After several hours, they manage to clarify the license plate number. Technician: Best I can do. The plate reads Morrison 1. Sheriff Torres vanity plate. Should be easy to trace. Clint: Let me guess. Registered to Morrison Construction. Sheriff Torres: in 1987, yes. Registered to Robert Morrison Jr. Clint. So Morrison was directly involved in the abduction. Sheriff Torres: It certainly looks that way. Clint: Question is, who sent us this footage? And why now? Sheriff Torres: Someone who wants the truth to come out. Someone who's been carrying this secret for 35 years. Clint: Or someone who's dying and wants to clear their conscience. Sheriff Torres: What do we do now? Clint: We arrest Morrison, and we hope he's ready to finally tell the truth. EXT. Morrison Mansion. Dawn police cars surround the Morrison estate as the sun rises over the town. Sheriff Torres leads a team of officers to the front door while Clint and Janice wait in a police car. Janice, I can't believe this is finally happening. Clint Justice moves slowly, but it moves. Sheriff Torres emerges from the mansion with Robert Morrison in handcuffs. The old man looks frail and defeated, a stark contrast to the arrogant figure who dismissed them just days before. Intia Police Station. Interrogation room. Day Morrison sits across from Clint and Sheriff Torres, his lawyer by his side. The video footage plays on a monitor showing the abduction clearly. Sheriff Torres, Mr. Morrison, this video shows your vehicle being used in the kidnapping of Thomas Walker. Can you explain that? Morrison's lawyer. My client has no comment at this time. Clint. Mr. Morrison, we know you were involved. The question is whether you're going to tell us what happened to Thomas Walker, or if we're going to have to piece it together from other sources. Morrison stares at the table for a long moment, then looks up at his lawyer. Morrison. I want to make a statement. Morrison's lawyer. Bob, I strongly advise against that. Morrison, I'm 75 years old. I've carried this burden for 35 years. It's time. Clint, we're listening. Morrison, after a long pause. Thomas Walker was supposed to be scared off. That's all. We never intended for anyone to get hurt. Sheriff Torres. Who's we? Morrison, myself, Sheriff Brennan, and a few others. Walker had discovered our arrangement and was threatening to expose it. Clint. What arrangement? Morrison. My company paid certain officers for information and favorable treatment. It was business, nothing more. Janice, from the observation room over intercom. It was corruption. Morrison looks toward the one-way glass, knowing Janice is watching. Morrison. Yes, it was corruption. And when Walker threatened to expose it, we panicked. Sheriff Torres. What happened the night he disappeared? Morrison. The plan was to intimidate him, make him understand that it would be better for everyone if he kept quiet. Clint. But something went wrong. Morrison Walker fought back. He was stronger than we expected, more determined. During the struggle, he hit his head on the car door. Hard. Clint. Was he killed? Morrison. Not intentionally, but he was unconscious, bleeding. We panicked. Sheriff Torres. What did you do with the body? Morrison. We drove him out to the old quarry. By the time we got there, he was already gone. Janice, over intercom, crying. You left him there? Like garbage? Morrison. We were young, scared. We thought if we just made it look like he'd disappeared, eventually people would stop looking. Clint. Where exactly in the quarry? Morrison. The deep section, near the old mining equipment. We weighted the body down with concrete blocks. A heavy silence fills the room. 35 years of uncertainty have been resolved in a matter of minutes. Sheriff Torres, Mr. Morrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and accessory to manslaughter in the death of Thomas Walker. Morrison's lawyer. My client has cooperated fully. We request consideration for his age and the voluntary nature of his confession. Clint. His cooperation will be noted, but cooperation doesn't erase 35 years of letting a family suffer without answers. EXT Old Quarry. Day. The abandoned quarry sits on the outskirts of town, a deep water-filled pit surrounded by rusted mining equipment and forgotten machinery. Police divers work methodically, searching the murky depths while Clint, Sheriff Torres, and Janice wait on the shore. Janice. I always imagined he was somewhere warm. Florida maybe, or California, starting a new life. Clint. That would have been easier to accept. Janice. In some ways, yes, but this is the truth. And he deserves the truth. A police diver surfaces and signals to the shore. After a brief underwater search, the dive team locates what remains of Thomas Walker. Sheriff Torres to Janice. Are you sure you want to be here for this? Janice. I've been waiting 35 years to bring my father home. I'm not leaving now. The recovery is handled with dignity and respect. Thomas Walker's remains are carefully brought to the surface and transferred to the coroner's team. Janice, Conti D, whispering. It's over, Dad. You can rest now. Inti Millbrook Cemetery. Day. A small funeral service is held for Thomas Walker. The turnout is larger than expected. Co-workers from the police station, neighbors who remembered him, and people who followed the story in the news. Janice stands at the graveside holding a folded American flag. Thomas Walker's military service has been honored with full recognition. Pastor Thomas Walker was a man who believed in doing the right thing, even when it cost him everything. His courage in the face of corruption reminds us that ordinary people can make extraordinary sacrifices for justice. Janice, speaking to the gathered crowd. My father always said that the truth has weight. It might take time to surface, but it never truly disappears. Today, his truth has weight again. After the service, as people disperse, Clint approaches Janice. Clint, how are you holding up? Janice, better than I expected. For the first time in 35 years, I know where my father is. I know what happened to him. And I know he died as the man I always believed him to be. Honest, brave, and good. Clint, what will you do now? Janice, I'm retiring from nursing next month. I think I'd like to volunteer here at the station, help with cold cases. There might be other families out there, waiting for answers like I was. Clint, that's a good way to honor his memory. Janice, what about you? Will you stay on? Clint, for a while, there's still work to do. Morrison's confession has opened up other cases from that era. Other families deserve answers too. Janice, the ripple effects. Clint, exactly. One act of courage, your father's courage, has exposed decades of corruption and given hope to families who thought they'd never know the truth. Janice, he would have liked that. Inti, Millbrook Police Station. Weeks later. The station is busier than usual. Several cold cases have been reopened based on evidence uncovered during the Walker investigation. Janice sits at a desk near Clint's, sorting through files and corresponding with families of missing persons. Sheriff Torres approaches with a newspaper. Sheriff Torres, have you seen today's paper? The headline reads, Police Corruption Scandal Leads to Federal Investigation. Clint, how far up does it go? Sheriff Torres' FBI thinks it may have involved state officials. Morrison's construction company had contracts all over the region. Janice, my father would be amazed. One janitor with a camera and a tape recorder, bringing down a network that spanned decades. Clint, he'd be proud, not of bringing anyone down, but of the truth finally coming to light. Sheriff Torres, speaking of truth, we got something interesting in the mail today. She hands Clint an envelope with no return address. Sheriff Torres, Contid. It's from whoever sent the security footage. They finally identified themselves. Clint opens the envelope and reads the letter silently. Clint, it's from Betty Brennan, Sheriff Brennan's widow. Janice, she kept the footage all these years? Clint, reading. My husband was not a bad man, but he made bad choices. Before he died, he gave me this tape and told me that someday someone would need to see it. He said the truth always finds a way to surface, and when it did, I should make sure justice was served. Sheriff Torres. She waited until someone started asking the right questions. Clint. I apologize for waiting so long. Fear is a powerful thing. But watching Mrs. Walker search for answers gave me the courage to do what my husband asked. He died with regrets, but maybe this can make some of them right. Janice. Even in death, people can choose to do the right thing. Clint. That's what redemption looks like. Not erasing the past, but making sure it serves the future. Inti, Millbrook Police Station, evening. As the day shift ends, Clint sits alone at his desk, reviewing case files. The station is quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of traffic. He looks up at the wall where the Morrison portrait once hung. In its place is a simple memorial plaque. In memory of Thomas Walker, 1945-1987, a man who chose courage over comfort. Clint, to himself, sometimes that's all any of us can do. Sheriff Torres approaches, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Sheriff Torres, long day? Clint, productive day. We closed 3 more cases from the 80s. 3 more families finally have answers. Sheriff Torres. You know, when I first took this job, I thought justice was about catching the bad guys and putting them in jail. Clint. Now? Sheriff Torres. Now I think it's about making sure people aren't forgotten, that their stories matter, that the truth eventually gets told. CLINT. That's what Thomas Walker believed, Sheriff Torres. And he was right. It just took 35 years to prove it. CLINT. The best truths usually do take time. They have to find the right people, the right moment, the right combination of courage and circumstance. Sheriff Torres. What's next for you? CLINT. There's a case from 1992. A missing teacher. Her family's been asking questions for 30 years. I think it's time someone started listening. Sheriff Torres. You're becoming quite the cold case specialist. CLINT. I'm becoming someone who understands that the past doesn't stay buried forever. It just waits for the right person to dig it up. EXT. Millbrook Police Station. Night. CLINT emerges from the station into the cool evening air. The small town stretches out before him, modest homes, tree-lined streets, and the quiet dignity of a place where people work hard and try to do right by each other. He walks to his truck, but before getting in, he looks back at the station. Through the windows, he can see the night shift taking over, continuing the work of serving and protecting. His phone buzzes with a text message from Janice. Thank you for giving my father his voice back. CLINT types a reply. He never lost it. We just learned how to listen. In T. CLINT's truck. Night. As CLINT drives through the quiet streets, he passes the cemetery where Thomas Walker now rests. The headstone is visible in the moonlight, a simple marker that tells the story of a man who lived with integrity and died for truth. CLINT, voiceover. People think that justice is about punishment, about making sure the bad guys pay for what they've done. But sometimes justice is simpler than that. Sometimes it's just about making sure people know that someone cared enough to find the truth. EXT. Highway. Night. The truck moves along the dark highway that connects small towns across the valley. Other vehicles pass, late shift workers heading home, families returning from dinner, travelers on longer journeys. CLINT. VO. Thomas Walker spent 15 years mopping floors and emptying trash cans in a police station. Most people would say that wasn't a particularly important job. But when he saw something wrong, he did something about it. He took pictures, made recordings, and documented the truth. INT. CLINT's ranch house. Night. CLINT enters his modest home, hanging his jacket on a chair and pouring himself a glass of water. The house is quiet but comfortable, filled with the accumulated possessions of a life well lived. On his kitchen table sits a stack of case files, other mysteries, other families waiting for answers. CLINT. VO. It cost him his life. But 35 years later, that truth finally found its way to the surface. It found people who were willing to listen, to investigate, to risk their own comfort for justice. CLINT. VO. That's how change happens. Not through grand gestures or dramatic confrontations, but through ordinary people making difficult choices. One person at a time, one truth at a time. CLINT sits at his table and opens the first case file. Another missing person, another family waiting for answers, another truth waiting to be discovered. CLINT. VO. The Morrison painting is gone now, replaced by a memorial to a man who refused to look the other way. And every day people walk past that memorial and remember that courage doesn't require a badge or a title or special training. It just requires the willingness to do what's right, even when it's hard. Robert Morrison Jr. was sentenced to 15 years for conspiracy and accessory to manslaughter. He died in prison 2 years later. The FBI investigation resulted in the reopening of 23 cold cases and the conviction of 8 former police officers. Janice Walker established the Thomas Walker Foundation, which provides resources for families of missing persons and supports police accountability initiatives. The memorial plaque in the Millbrook Police Station reads, "In memory of Thomas Walker, a man who chose courage over comfort. His truth endures." Sometimes the most important battles are fought by people whose names we never learn. Sometimes the greatest courage is shown by those who know they'll never see the victory. Sometimes justice is just making sure that someone's story gets told. Fade out. The end. In small towns across America, there are police stations with memorial plaques, courthouses with portraits of forgotten heroes, and cemeteries where ordinary people rest after making extraordinary choices. Thomas Walker was one of those people, a janitor who became a guardian of truth. A man who understood that democracy depends not on the powerful, but on those who refuse to let the powerful act without accountability. His story reminds us that corruption thrives in darkness, but withers in the light of truth. That justice delayed is not justice denied, as long as there are people willing to keep searching for answers. And that sometimes the most important secrets are hidden not in bank vaults or government files, but behind the everyday objects that surround us, waiting for someone brave enough to look behind the surface and find the truth that lies beneath. The painting of Mayor Morrison was just a painting. But behind it lay the evidence that would expose decades of corruption and bring justice to a man who died protecting others. Truth has weight. It might take 35 years to surface. But it never truly disappears.